Yo, what's shaking, everybody? Welcome to the Orangebloods postgame show. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Jason Sukamel. Anwar Richardson will join us live from DKR. I don't know, 15, 20, 30 minutes. It's hard to tell. It's just a matter of how long it takes for Steve Sarkisian's postgame press conference to finish up and then for him to get back into a position to do the show. As you guys file in, do us a solid. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Get notifications. And oh, by the way, Blake, if you have that graphic ready, know that right now we've got a special free trial over at orangebloods.com, even if there's not a graphic there for it. One of the best free offers Rivals has ever given out. Go check it out on my Twitter page, the Orangebloods Twitter page, the Rivals Twitter page. Blake can get it up there in a little bit. But the bottom line is for $22, basically the cost of 2 months, you get an entire year for $22. So go check that thing out. And Jason, oh, by the way, this isn't an insignificant deal. Adam Loewy and the Loewy Law Firm, the sponsor of the Orangebloods postgame show and have been for more than a decade. Shout out to Adam Loewy and the fact that if you're looking for somebody, you need a lawyer because somebody has injured you or hurt you or you just need to get after it. That's what Adam Loewy's there for. He's one of the best in the business. Mr. Sukamel, the Longhorns win today, 38-27 over Baylor. It's a win in the season finale. They move up to 8-4, which is better than 7-5. Bijan with a big day, Roschon with a big day, Jalen with a big day, Demo with a big day, and yet it feels like one of these games throughout the weekend where there's going to be a gigantic but with everything that's discussed following what, again, isn't an insignificant win, even if it felt like Texas had to work for it a lot more than maybe they should have.
Yeah, 8-4, you said it. It just sounds a lot different than 7-5 and obviously 6-6. Now they're on a 2-game winning streak. Now everybody can sit there and watch the Kansas State and Kansas game tomorrow night and see what happens there. But just to finish on a 2-game win streak, you send your seniors off with a victory in their last home game. You got a chance now to go to a bowl game and finish 9-4, if not even the Big 12 championship. So it has a lot different feel, man. I mean, I kind of said it earlier this week. I said, I don't know if it was on the modcast or a radio show. I think I said it on, but I was like, this isn't a make or break game for Texas. It's really not going to alter the course of the program that much. But, you have a good taste in your mouth if you're Texas coming out of this one, knowing you got to win, knowing you've won a couple in a row. You got bowl practices coming up, and then obviously the offseason. So 8-4 sounds a hell of a lot better than 7-5. There is a lot to critique in this game. Like you said, it's a good win, but there are some things that kind of have you scratching your head, like what in the world is going on here, and how's this happening? But bottom line is, when the chips were down early in the fourth quarter, and Texas was down after that fumble recovery and fumble for touchdown for Baylor. Texas responded when the chips were down, man. They ran the ball, they enforced their will. It just kind of took over this game. You mentioned Jalen Ford making a key play to give Texas some separation. So not a flawless win. Wasn't the most beautiful win, but you know what? Sometimes you got to win maybe less than pretty, and Texas did that today on a good effort, I think, overall. Defensively, they ran the ball well. Special teams played a clean game. So just a good win for Texas, gives Texas some momentum heading into bowl season.
The chat in the comment section really, I think, is screaming what the story of this game is going to be. There's a whole lot of gonna miss Bijan Robinson. He's special. Roschon's special. Defense played great. Then there's a whole lot about the quarterback position, which
statistically it wasn't awful if you're just looking at his passing
if
stat.
you just looked at the throwing numbers, Quinn Ewers had one of his best games of the season. But this ends up being a game. I mean, there's the safety. There is, I think, for all of the body language reading on Xavier Worthy over the last couple of weeks. I thought Ewers is, if we're going to do it one way, then it's fair game on everybody. And I kind of just watched Quinn today and was wanting more from him. And then you have the fumble that's returned for a touchdown. You've got the missed pass to Jatavion Sanders. It should have been 7 points. high throw means Texas comes away with 3. If Baylor hadn't been awful at the quarterback position themselves, what kind of ends up happening in this game is that both quarterbacks weren't great. And then in the end, Texas's other 21 guys was better than Baylor's. But, Shapen was all over the place today. Maybe he doesn't have the awful plays that Ewers ends up happening, but he wasn't good. And it may have been the thing that saved Texas's bacon as much as anything else. Jason, I've been saying for weeks, we're out of weeks now, but started about 3 or 4 weeks ago, after every time you and I do a post-game show, it's like, it's really critical that with 3 games left, or it's really critical with 2 games left, that Quinn Ewers puts a performance in that can help reshape the narrative that this is his job. He's going to be the guy. Just don't worry about it. These are all growing pains that are going to be okay. Today, weirdly, like you said, his numbers were good. I don't know that the eyeball test has ever been worse for him. And by the end of it, Sarkisian just stopped letting him do anything with the ball. He fumbles to give Baylor the lead. And when Texas gets the ball back,
right? He never threw the ball.
He never threw another pass the rest of the game. They ran off something like 20-plus straight plays that either went to Roschon or Bijan, but Steve Sarkisian just took the ball out of Quinn Ewers' hands. You can see the quarterback thing being a talk. It's going to be the talking point all season or all off season long, especially when Art shows up. But what a really, I don't even completely know what to say about Quinn Ewers other than he's just got to get better.
Yeah, I'm looking at the play-by-play on the official one, and after that fumble, this is going to take a minute, so bear with me. Bijan rush, Bijan rush, Bijan rush, Bijan rush, Roschon rush, Roschon rush, Bijan rush, Bijan rush, Bijan rush, Roschon rush, Bijan rush, touchdown. Next drive, Bijan rush, Roschon rush, Roschon rush, Roschon rush, touchdown. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you and I could have quarterbacked the team after that point. But Catch, like I've said before, like we. I think me, you, and collectively everybody watching Texas, and I'll say, speaking for myself personally, I'm guilty of it. I have been so caught up in what we've seen early in the season, maybe against Oklahoma, and certainly in the limited play against Alabama from Quinn Ewers, that I'm like, okay, he's going to get that back. And I think you even asked me maybe on the Modcast or maybe on this show last week, or a couple weeks ago, do I think we're going to see Quinn Ewers get back to that kind of Oklahoma-ish level? And I said, oh yeah, I think so. But listen, man, it's like I put it in my random thoughts just now that I posted on Orange Bloods. It's justifiable now to wonder, is he the face of this program at the quarterback position? I don't know. I don't know that it's Arch Manning. I don't know if it's Malik Murphy, but I sure as hell don't know if it's Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card. Let's not discount him either. There just hasn't been any progress. And I keep waiting for it to happen. It's like this time bomb. I'm waiting for it to explode, and he has this great game. And it's not happened. He's taken steps backward, which is bewildering to me when we know Sark's reputation as a quarterback developer. I mean, I'm not going to – there was talk among our Slack channel. God was like, was this a missed evaluation? Was he ever a 5-star guy? I don't know. I'm not ready to bury the guy yet and say that Quinn Ewers is not the guy for Texas moving forward. But, boy, he's going to have to win the job again, and he's going to have to show a lot of improvement moving forward from what we've seen over the last month or so.
I just wanted to throw in I wanted to how when you're watching in a UFC fight or in boxing and the guy catches 1 or 2 more punches than he probably should, and you're like, get in there, ref. I kind of felt that way about Quinn today. I just wanted the game to end because the situational awareness, the pocket presence. I got into a weird little argument earlier this week with somebody who was swearing to me that these 2 things specifically hadn't been an issue all season long, that he may not be hitting the deep ball, but the situational awareness and pocket presence haven't been issues. And I was like, I don't agree with you, but I'm not saying they've been horrible, but there are times when I feel like they have been issues, never for an entire game. And boy, he was the biggest box of chocolates that I've seen certainly from Quinn Ewers ever. I legitimately didn't know every time he went back to pass whether he was going to throw a dime, because there were some of those today. There were some throws today. It was like, no, look, that's what they love about him. He can make completing 20-yard intermediate passes look so easy. But today, he seems spooked. Certainly when Cole Hudson got hurt. The very next play, DJ Campbell comes in and is responsible partly for a sack being given up. And like, he's turning around and he's yelling at him. And you could just feel like it was adding up to a lot of pressure on Ewers' shoulders. They weren't running the ball at that point. I mean, we're going to go into the spring, and it's going to be who had the best day at practice today.
I know Anwar, he'll talk about it when he gets here, but like, that's the last thing any of us want to be covering, man. It's like,
it's the one thing that I said this last year, the only thing that they needed to do last year was end the season without that question being a question. And then they didn't, but then they signed Quinn Ewers. So then it felt like, okay, well, now that's put to bed. Somehow we've gone through 2 straight years of Sarkisian where we're just going to enter the offseason and we may have less of an idea. As crazy as that sounds to say, I felt like going into the offseason 2 years ago, it was Hudson Card's job. I felt like this season, that it was going to be Quinn Ewers' job, like 6 months out. He's going to be the starting quarterback. I don't know. So it's weirdly going into year 3 of Sarkisian, we know, I think, less about who's definitely going to be the guy than we did 2 years ago or even 6 months ago. I would never have guessed that this season would end like this. And I don't mean to be we're talking about the quarterback position. There's so much of this game that's worthy of celebration, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's just impossible to ignore the elephant in the room. He got boozed today at the stadium. Like, it's just, we've reached a point at the quarterback position where it's a big old Elmo shoulder shrug.
Well, be ready, sources. We're going to be hitting you up every day in spring football.
It's the worst. It's the worst.
What is, like, I'm reading this one comment, piling on Quinn Ewers right now when he wasn't the reason this game was close. What do you mean he wasn't the reason?
He was literally the reason.
There was a 4-point swing on the missed pass to Jatavian. You can say Jatavian could have made that catch, and he probably could have, but it was a bad pass. It was high, and it was too much heat on it. He was uncovered, man. You could just loft it out there underhand. He would have caught it. I mean, the fumble out, that's a 4-point swing. The safety, he didn't get a lot of help, that safety, but he's got to have the state of mind to get the ball somewhere else where it's not an easy grounding call. That's 2 points. Obviously, the fumble was at minimum a 7-point swing. I mean, that's 11 points that Quinn was pretty directly responsible for. So, yeah, Quinn was the reason this game was close. I would argue that this game wouldn't have been close if Texas got better play from the quarterback. And we say all that catch, and you and I said it before, 12 of 16 for 194 yards and no turnovers in the passing game looks pretty good, right? But
it's literally one of his best passing performances of the season. If nothing else, the completion percentage is way up.
Mm-hmm.
It was just
yards per attempt way up. Yeah,
I think he finished with negative 48 yards rushing, which
yeah.
Not all his fault, but you have the fumble. And on the heels of, again, Sarkisian on Monday saying that the quarterback job was going to be open going into the spring, I think today on the message boards, today was the most frustrated.
But it's funny, real quick. That's just the nature of the beast, man. Like, in the first quarter, I look up, and he's 4 of 5, Quinn, with a touchdown run and a 218 QBR or something like that. And there's like 3 threads on Orangebloods. Like, he sucks. Get him out of there. Like,
I know.
What are you talking about now?
I'm telling you, today was by far and away the biggest just parachuting off of the Ewers Island I've seen. We reached a point where there wasn't anything that he could do. People were it was a Hudson Card get him on the field. I had one guy made a post on Orangebloods where he was like, and I'm still a little bit bothered that Ketch said in the Oklahoma State game he wouldn't have made the change. And I was like, you're still bothered by something that happened 6 weeks ago? And like, people are like, Ketch said that? What an idiot. It was like, whoa, okay, so we're there now. And the season ends with Ewers not touching the ball or being in control of it, whatever that volume of plays it turned out to be. I think 22 total plays.
Yeah, those plays that I ran, that didn't even include the very last drive. So I'm going to have to go back and have more time.
They almost punched it in for a touchdown.
Yeah, but it had to be close to 20 straight running plays to end the game, I would guess, if not more. So.
By the end, Sarkisian was seeing what everybody else was seeing. I'm curious to see what Sarkisian says after the game, and Anwar will join us probably like 20 minutes or so to discuss all of that. But that Ewers will be a focal point of the game because he's going to get asked again, did you think about putting Card into the game? He's going to be asked again what this means for the quarterback. He's going to get asked these questions. I think he needs to get ready for it.
22 straight running plays, if I just counted correctly, to end the game by Texas. 22 straight, man. That's crazy.
It was needed. You know what I mean? Like they were running down the field, and at no point did I think to myself, this is where they should go play action and take a shot with Worthy. It was like, no, don't do that.
Even before the fumble, I started putting my notes. Like I was like, this feels like a game Bijan was starting to take over a little bit, and then Quinn goes out and has the fumble. So I felt like it was kind of trending that direction anyways. But after that mistake, then it was like, okay, we're not even going to give Quinn a chance to make another mistake. And I mean, listen, 9 yards, 7 yards, 4 yards, 12 yards, 4, 8, 23. So I mean, listen, if they weren't running the ball, I'm not saying they wouldn't have thrown it in if they had to, but I don't think the situation ever really presented itself where it was really needed to throw the ball.
Okay, so let's move on from Quinn from a while. Like it had to be discussed. It was, if we didn't discuss it, quite frankly, people would tune into this video and go, what do you mean for the first 15 minutes of the video you didn't talk about Quinn Ewers? Let's move along.
I see we had a bunch of super chats. You want to blow through a few of those? Or?
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. No, hold on real quick, then we'll go to the super chats. It was Bijan and Roschon's last games, in all likelihood. I mean, at the end, Robert Griffin is like, raise $7 million in NIL again. It was like,
that easy. Yeah, sure.
I love that, like, RG3 was like, just give him that $7 million that's in the bank somewhere. Give him like 3 times more than anybody got this year. Even then, I don't know that it's enough. Roschon and Bijan at the end combined for 256 yards and 4 touchdowns. And what will almost certainly be the season, like last home game they get to play in. Really cool. Really cool. I mean, if you'd asked me for a recipe of what would be appropriate for today, those two guys ended up having the games. Roschon hurdles over that guy. Mm-hmm. That might have been the best play of his career, and he's had some amazing plays in his career. And yet that was the one that should be on a poster in some 10-year-old's wall. That was really good stuff. And I thought DeMarvion Overshone, again, senior day. DeMarvion Overshone finished with a team best 14 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 pass breakups. It's probably Demo's best game of his season.
He didn't even get a credit for a quarterback hurry on that last play where he blows through and he has to throw the ball away.
He was everywhere all day long.
It's crazy. Ford was too. Ford had 13, but only 2 solos for Ford. DeMarvion had 14 total and 7 solo tackles. I mean, they both
combined from those two, 27 tackles, 9 solo, 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, an interception, 3 pass breakups, and 1 official quarterback hurry. Overshone had, I thought, a couple of hurries as well.
Yeah, me too.
It really was. Those two guys played a lights-out game. So I want to mention those two guys, and then Roschon and Bijan. I thought all 4 of those guys were just special today. And for all the conversation that will exist from the Super Chat and beyond, definitely need to take a moment to just go, attaboy, guys. That was big-time stuff on what was a really important stage for all those guys. Jake just jumps in and like wanted to say what's up. He's a big Jayhawk fan. Rock Chalk Jayhawks, Jake.
Yeah, Rock Chalk.
Or maybe
Jayhawks.
he's a Texas fan who's now officially a Jayhawk fan and needing Kansas to do a number on Kansas State tomorrow. Chris says in the super chat, we ran 22. We should have just gone to Chris.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
He had the number for us. We ran 22 plays after Ewers' turnover, and not one of them was a pass. Does this hurt our recruiting portal with wide receivers? Okay, well, Chris, you asked a question that I'll just answer. It doesn't seem so. It sounds like wide receivers are interested. I think, look, Sark's offense is always going to be one that attracts wide receivers. I think the Arch Manning thing is hard to ignore because the people that I'm talking to, Evan Stewart from A&M continues to be a guy that I think just everybody will have to watch and see, will he actually go into the portal? Because he could tell people he's going to the portal up to 15 minutes before he makes a decision, and no one would be stunned if he just did something different. I mean, that's always been kind of his rep. There's another guy in the portal, though, that I've heard through back channels has really been aggressive in recruiting Texas, made it kind of easy on the Longhorns. I think the Longhorns are going to come away with a couple of portal receivers when it's all said and done. No, it doesn't help. This is where having Arch Manning is really significant, Jason, because if you're talking about the future in recruiting, a lot of these guys are going to look more towards Arch than they were Quinn anyway. So for some people, this may speed the process up of the thing that ultimately – I think this is like what Sims got he has such a huge profile that there will be guys that will want to come play with him, and no disrespect to the other 5-star guy on the team who has a really big rep. But, they talk about Arch Manning on Monday Night TV. They don't do that, with mere mortals. So, but what is your thoughts? I mean, 2024 in-state recruiting, if they're going after arguably the number one prospect in the state,
and listen,
does Micah Hudson, does this?
I don't think it impacts things. No.
Yeah.
You say it's one game. You said, listen, we had Bijan freaking Robinson and Roschon Johnson, two guys who are going to be high NFL draft picks probably. Two guys that they ran for whatever you said, almost 240 yards, whatever it was. So, no, more than that. Was it 180, 256? Is that right? Is my math right? Yeah. So you do what works, guys, and look at Sark's history. I mean, he's known to get receivers involved, and
they're never going to struggle with receivers.
No, I don't think so. If they do, it won't be because of this game, and it won't be because of Sark's reputation for sure. Trumps a lot of that. So.
Eric jumps into the super chat. Hello, Eric. Did Sark take the ball out of Quinn's hand, or was he worried because O-line protection, especially when DJ Campbell gave up one sack and when Carrick's – I mean, it's probably a combination of all that. The offensive line was not helping Ewers today. That's fair to say. They were getting to Ewers before Cole Hudson was injured. They were already running a lot of that same stuff. And then when DJ Campbell came in, they did it even more. But Quinn just didn't have it. And I think so, I don't think Sark will go into the postgame press conference and say it was 98% Sark and 2% offensive line protection. It's probably just a combination of things that's hard to put a percentage on. But it literally happened the play. That shouldn't have been a fumble. I mean, as bad as the offensive line protection was, that can't be a turnover in that situation. And I think that's the thing with Jason today with Ewers. When we talk about situational awareness, when to get rid of the ball, and sometimes you just have to throw the ball away. If you're feeling pressure as he did, the thing is, if you're a Division I quarterback at this level, you go back to the first quarter when the safety occurs. You have to know before the play starts, if pressure comes based on what's happening on the play, this is where I throw the ball away. You have to, you have to know what's the worst outcome possible and how do I avoid that? And what ended up happening was he gave his team no chance to avoid disaster, if you want to call giving up a safety and possession in that spot a disaster. He ends up doing the worst thing he can possibly. I mean, at that point, just let the guy hit you because you're giving the team 2 points. And now the team wins by 11. So at the end of the day, it's just a play at the beginning of a game that we won't remember probably much beyond the next 24 to 72 hours. But in the moment,
hey, when it was 9-0, it felt like a big moment, right?
It did.
Yeah.
And you know what? Credit to Texas. Twice in this game, they really picked themselves off the canvas and got back to swinging punches. Down 9-0 to come back from there and score a touchdown immediately, and then to take the lead at that point and went on what I guess a 17-0 run at that point before Baylor responded. I think that's right.
Yeah, well, it definitely was 14. Yeah, I think they had the field goal. I think you're right. So,
and then to come right
No,
back,
I'm sorry. No, it's 14-9 and then 14-12. So 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of okay. Anyway, it doesn't change the point. The response after going down 9-0, they end up leading. Texas does at the end of the first quarter after that. Then to have the fumble, so they fumble, it's returned for a touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion, and suddenly you're down. You went from being up 5 to down 3, and you don't believe in your quarterback anymore at that point. And they went out and scored 2 touchdowns and really came within a yard or 2 of a third to close the game out. Twice in this game, Baylor really landed a haymaker. And for Texas to get up twice and it not matter in the end, I thought was one of the more positive things that you would say about the game today, Jason.
Yeah, it battled back. Sark's talking right now, so I'll go back and watch it here in a little bit. But I would guess one of the things he'll say is, hey, good teams have to battle back in the face of adversity. You're going to face adversity pretty much every game you play. And Texas faced it a couple times this week and fell behind. You mentioned by 2 scores to start the game, fell behind early in the fourth quarter. It would have been easy for Texas after that fumble to be like, oh man, here we go, and feel sorry for themselves. But picked themselves up, dusted themselves off, and just almost got kind of pissed off about it and just forced their will in taking command of the game. So, credit for Texas for battling back when the chips were down, so to speak, and not. I'm sure there was frustration. I mean, you saw it in some of the body language. You saw it from Quinn a couple times, but the team as a whole just kind of stuck together and did a good job of fighting when they were behind.
Jason, this is an interesting one from Chris.
I saw it earlier, and I don't want to. Yeah, I'll interrupt you, Catch, but I don't want to go too far into it. But if you were started this season playing like he ended it, would he have kept his job as QB1? I don't think so. Simple answer for me is I don't think he would have. Yeah.
I think he could probably get to about the Texas Tech game. So we're talking at that point, that'd be the 4th game of the season. If it kept going the way, if he'd had the last 4 performances and the first 4 performances, I think you start looking at that Oklahoma game and you get nervous. If you're Sark, right? You're 4 games in. I think he'd have to make a decision at that point. I don't know what he would do though, because I really don't believe at any point this season he's really ever considered putting Ewers on the bench, even for just a drive, to let him kind of get that. Ewers is his guy. I think it took the injury to get Hudson Card on the field in the first place. So, and not that obviously in the Alabama game it was needed then. I'm going to say he would have, but there's also the part of me that there's some common sense with Jason's talking about, which is at the beginning of the season, if it looks like this, you almost have to.
My thing is, if he's playing like this at the beginning of the season, you don't have that quarter against Alabama to look at and say, okay, we know this is what he's capable of. We don't have that Oklahoma game. If he starts off the season playing this poorly, I think you probably make the switch to Hudson Card. I think the reason Sark's been so committed to Quinn is because he's seen, albeit briefly and albeit a long while ago, he's seen flashes of what he's capable of. Now, are we ever going to see those flashes again? I don't know at this point. I'm starting to wonder. But if he started the season playing this well and didn't have those flashes that you could go back to, I don't know, man. I think Hudson Card probably, maybe he doesn't end up holding on to the job too. But I think Hudson at some point gets a shot.
I think it's almost a rhetorical question because there really isn't an answer to it because it didn't happen, and so it's hard to know. But the fact that we are where we are with the position and almost at a reset going into the spring, I think says a lot. Troy says, I recall our sack numbers were horrible last year as a team. Can you tell us how we compare to this year and who had the most? Texas had 20 sacks last year. I believe if it's updated, they're at 24. I think. Hold on. Let me see what it was. So they were at 24 coming into today. What did they have today, Jason? Do you know? 3.
Sorry.
So they had 27 sacks this year in 12 games, and they had 20 a year ago. Just in terms of, and who had the most sacks? Sorrell had the most sacks with 5.5. Missed him today. I didn't think Baron Sorrell played all that. I just didn't notice him a whole lot. I don't even know what he finished with in terms of numbers, but I don't remember him even accidentally getting close to a quarterback.
3 tackles, no plays of note, really. So.
Let's see more. Mark says in the super chat, Texans forget how bad Vince Young and Colt McCoy were in their freshman years. Ewers is a freshman. Well, Mark, I don't know how good Colt McCoy as a redshirt freshman would have probably been a Heisman finalist had he not got hurt against Kansas, and then the A&M game that follows directly after that, and his last 7 quarters were a disaster. But he was legitimately in the top 3 of the Heisman as a freshman. As a sophomore, he turned the ball over 22 times. And that was a thing with Colt McCoy as a young player. Vince was never a good thrower, Jason, but his situational awareness and kind of football instincts were always kind of the things that made you want to put him on the field. I get Mark's point, but I don't know.
Pretty good as a freshman, so I don't know. His sophomore years where he took a step back, but
you could point to Sims though. Sims wasn't great as a. It took till Sims' 4th year before it wasn't just good for an occasional pick 6 every 2 or 3 games. But Mark, in a defense of Ewers being a freshman, point taken. But we're not the ones that literally said on Monday that he hasn't done enough to essentially be the de facto starter in the spring.
Bottom line, listen, he just hasn't lived up to expectations. He came in as described by just about everybody as a generational talent. Hell, you had, was it after the Alabama game and the Oklahoma game, you had national media saying he's going to be the number 1 draft pick. That just seems silly now. He's regressed and he just hasn't lived up to expectations. As I said earlier, I'm not burying the guy, and I still think he could be a great college quarterback, but he's a long way from that right now.
Yeah, I think this becomes the most important offseason of his career and life, because if it happens now, then he can take the bull by the horns, Jason, as the quarter. He will go into the spring as the guy that is the surest bet to be the day 1 starter. So if he does a great job in the offseason, they want him to start. I think ideally, I don't think they want to think that this entire investment into him is blown up in flames and now just go immediately to Arch. There's just a lot of work that he has to do. Pet Rooster asks.
I like the comments. You idiots were calling him number 1. Never once in my life have I said that Quinn Ewers is going to be the number 1 draft pick, man. So I don't know where that's coming from.
Caleb Williams is also in that class. So before I can say he would be the number 1 pick in the draft, I think guys like Trent Dilfer have said that, though. And I like Dilfer. I'm not slamming Dilfer at all. It might not even been Dilfer. Some quarterback was saying that early in the season. Pet, no. I do not know if Ewers has had his yearly vision exam. I need to probably take mine. It reminds me of after Vinny Testaverde won the Heisman, but played terrible. And it might have even been after his first season in Tampa Bay. They tested his eyes and he was colorblind. He had like 28 interceptions that year as a rookie, and then it was like, oh, we got to do something about this colorblind thing. Tom G says, in the super chat, do you agree that DJ being inserted is what made the running game take off? They were going nowhere with Hudson in there.
They did run the ball better. I don't know if it's coincidence or not. And, someone asked earlier, Eric, I think, asked, did they go to the running game because they want to take Quinn out of the equation? Or is that maybe that's just because that's what they do better when DJ Campbell's in the game and he's a much better runner?
Well, they're going to do it whether he was in the game or not.
Probably. Yeah,
at that point in the game when you consider everything that happened. I think we finally saw Sark's. If they're trying to keep it 50-50 on that next drive, I don't know that Sark believes that they automatically I think the outcome at that point, they were going to either run the ball, Jason, or I think they were going to lose that game. And
absolutely. I agree.
And Texas ran the ball. Like Texas suddenly just started gashing Baylor in ways that I think we thought Baylor was going to do to Texas in the fourth quarter because the Texas defense had been on the field so long. It was like, oh, man, we've watched enough football to know that when you just keep delivering those body blows for the first three quarters of the game, that sometimes the knees get a little weak in the fourth quarter. Credit to Texas. That did not happen. In fact, the more you think about it, this is really the kind of game that Texas has lost a lot in the Steve Sarkisian game era. Fourth quarter, it wasn't on the road, but fourth quarter, after having a lead at halftime, or I guess no, right? What was the score at halftime? Remind me.
19-17. They're down by 2 at half.
19-17, and Texas was the ball first. But going into the third quarter and the game being close, and usually that's when the other team says Texas take them into the deep waters and drown them. This time Texas took Baylor into the deep waters and drowned them.
You're reading my mind, man, because like in the midway through the third quarter, somebody on our Slack channel said like this Texas defense is going to be gassed. And this is when Baylor had the ball and they were running the ball pretty effectively. And I said, I'm not sure they're not already gassed and like it's going to get worse. And then in my mind, I was thinking in my notes, I'm thinking this feels like Joey McGuire at Texas Tech saying, I told you, right?
Yeah.
They'll break. And I was thinking, uh-oh, here we go. But to their credit, I mean, Texas kind of flipped the script and ended up wearing Baylor down. So
in a weird way, yours' fumble forced Texas into a mentality that it's been accused they don't have. But they were kind of forced to be that guy today. And to their credit, they did. They in the end, they just overpowered and outmanned Baylor and out-toughed them and out.
Pretty good Baylor front seven too. This wasn't Kansas that they did it to. So yes, that's pretty impressive.
No, if I'm Sarkisian, I think with a little bit of retrospect through the whole thing, I think I wake up tomorrow really proud at how the team responded when knocked on the chin a couple of times, but closing in the fourth quarter. A year ago in this same game, they were up by double digits on Baylor, and Baylor just took it away from them. That didn't happen this year, and I think that to end the season in that way, I think will lame. I just saw that. I got a feeling that Mr. Shapen won't buy anything from me when I walk in his dealership on Thursday. Probably not, Lane. Baylor wins this game if Jerry Bohannon from a year ago is the Baylor quarterback. Lane, I won't spend all this in Texas. It's the Orangebloods post-game show, so I won't go into a long referendum on Blake Shapen. I'll just say this. They had a quarterback last year that won them a Big 12 I know Shapen came in at the end when Bohannon got hurt and did play in the championship. I get all that. But Jerry Bohannon was like pretty good quarterback for them last year. They ran him out of town in the spring. They gave Shapen the job in the spring so that Bohannon could just transfer someplace and play somewhere else. he's not very good. Now, maybe he will get better, and he's a young player too, but Texas is really lucky that Baylor didn't have a veteran quarterback today. What was Shapen's final? I'm talking about things I haven't looked up yet.
18 of 36, so exactly 50%, 179, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 104.5 QBR.
Yep. That's that. If you'd asked me what did I think his quarterback efficiency rating was in the game, I would have said about 100.
He started off playing pretty well. I was like, oh, is Texas going to get the good Blake Shapen? Because he can be pretty good. He can be really bad. And like the first drive or two, I was like, oh, he's making some nice throws. Uh-oh, is Texas getting the good Blake Shapen? But then
Texas made him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They did. Let's see. We'll keep knocking some of these out since we've got so many of them today. Tom G is in the chat. What's going on? This is for all the defeatists out there. Grow a pair, commenting on how the team quit. Turned out to be pure BS.
Yeah, but you know what? That was going on Orangebloods in the first quarter. So, I mean, it's like I just think
I've never thought of this team as quitters, though.
No, but I think I didn't see that, but I saw people on our Orangebloods message board just getting pissed off and pull Ewers after 3 plays and this, that, and the other. And game was over when it was 9-0, and so much.
There was a lot of that.
Yeah, so much for watching Kansas on Saturday, and like, dude, it's like early in the first quarter.
I wonder how much of these are attempted jinxes.
Maybe, yeah.
But some of it is so overboard. It's like Ewers is old Yeller, take him out behind the shed. Like, there's hardcore stuff going on there. It's like, come on, guys.
Ewers is a bad leader. He never shows any emotion. And then he chews out DJ Campbell, like, what an asshole, like, what, calling out his offensive lineman. I'm like, oh my God, dude. I go, yeah, you know who else is like pretty mellow? Dave Aranda. He's a pretty good leader of men. It's okay.
You're so right. You're so right. They're bitching that he wouldn't like bitch somebody out and show emotion. And in the moment that he did, they were like, he sold out his players.
Yeah, throw him under the bus. Yeah.
Oh, that's the most you've made me laugh all year. James in the super chat, is this first game Sark has won as a head coach when trailing at halftime?
I tried to look that up, James, and I'm sorry I could not find an answer for you. So.
I am going to I'm not looking that up. I'll wait.
Right. Yeah.
I'll let someone else go to like the USC and the God, was he really over? I remember at one point one of those numbers being put up as one of the stats, one of those, it's like after a guy gets hired, the worst stat in the world shows up and you just think to yourself, oh God. There was one of those oh God stats that was, I think, related to this. He might have, I don't want to say that he was, but
the answer is no. At Texas, he was 1-5.
When trailing at halftime?
Yeah, that's what Tom said in the chat, but I don't.
Okay. I'm
not good at remembering that kind of crap, so I'll take Tom's word for it.
There you go, James. Tom says no.
Send your $5 to Tom.
Chris says probably useless by me considering Sark probably won't change his way of thinking towards quarterbacks, but watching Quinn today is an example of why it's good to have a running quarterback or at least a good scrambler.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Amen, Chris. Not going to find anybody who I think you'll find that Jason and I both like quarterbacks who can move their legs. They're not bad to have. Jay Call says, does Malik – boy, there's been so many Malik Murphy questions lately. Does Malik Murphy have a chance of being in the starting quarterback race next year, or is it Quinn, Arch, and everyone else?
That would surprise me. He's going to have to really be good this spring and in the offseason to – after getting zero experience to beat out, I get it. Quinn hasn't played well, but that experience counts for something. And you've seen it in the chat. People say he's a freshman. I mean, that experience counts for something. So, I don't ever want to count Malik out because, anybody who's watched me knows I'm a huge.
It'll take a Herculean spring performance.
Yeah, you'd have to be just to the naked eye so much obviously better, than Quinn.
It reminds me, Jason, of when Colt and Jevin Sneed were battling for the job, and because Jevin was a more high-profile prospect and younger. So in the spring, when it looked like they were pretty much even, the thought process was, if he's even, he's leaving because he's younger and more highly recruited. So it's going to be Jevin Sneed. And by the time they got there in the summer, the players just knew that Colt was going to be the starter. I think that's what it would take. It would take Malik in the offseason being so good that every player in that locker room would just have to feel like it's a no-brainer. And I think at that point, the assistant coaches feel that.
Colt was a fantastic leader. I mean, he won those guys over just with his leadership and his effort. Yeah. And I mean, listen, Malik's got a lot of that in him. I mean, Quinn, we can debate about whether he's, what his leadership skills are, or, I think the team follows him, but who knows? Does the team sense a little bit and get a little frustrated if he's not playing well? I don't know. But I mean, it would take, like you said, a Herculean effort by Malik, but Malik's a dynamic personality. He's a fantastic leader. I could see the team following him, but I just think
if he were to get hot in the spring, Jason, he's such an alpha in a good way. Like guys gravitate towards him. I could see him getting some momentum, but yes, it will be really hard for him to win the job over Quinn, who now has an experience advantage over him. And, at this point, I think Sark still, I think there's a big gap between where Sark's mindset is with Ewers right now and Murphy. Because, Murphy could have played last week and it wouldn't have impacted his eligibility at all. They were up by a bazillion points. They could have just as easily put Malik in and let him get a little bit of game experience, just even if it's handing the ball off. And Sark chose not to do that. And it stood out to me. I was like, oh, okay. You really ain't trying to get him ready for next year because you think he might be the starter by doing this. I thought very quietly there was a statement last week in that not happening. A couple more super chat questions. And like I said, if you're just joining us, it is the Orangebloods postgame show here on the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel on YouTube. We are brought to you by the Adam Loewy Law Firm. Again, if you have an accident or you're injured, let Adam Loewy do that thing that he does that has made him so successful. Anwar Richardson will be joining us from DKR, presumably in the next. Are they done yet, Jason?
Oh, yeah, it's been done for a while, so he should be here.
I'm guessing he'll be here in the next 10 minutes. Let you and me finish out these questions. Michael says Quinn threw a decent ball today when he had time. Pass blocking was horrible. It should all be better next year. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, he didn't have great protection today, but when he didn't have good protection, he made some key mistakes. He's got to be able to overcome that when the pass protection breaks down or misses a block or somebody gets beat pretty quickly, as we saw on the safety. Or I'm sorry, that was the one where DJ Campbell got beat. But pass pro wasn't great, but he's still got to do a better job of eliminating the negative plays in terms of turnovers or whatever. When that pass protection breaks down. But yeah, I would say it should be better next year. I mean, it's still a very young offensive line. He's right.
Let's bring Anwar Richardson in, and we'll just knock out these last two super chat questions so that we're completely caught up before we say goodbye to Jason and hello to Anwar and get the report from the stadium following the game. Triple T Joseph 44. It's always a difficult one for me to say. We went 3-1 in the Final Four. That is big. Not many thought we could do it after Oklahoma State.
I didn't think they could. I mean, the only loss was a tough loss to TCU. So if you'd have told me 3-1 after Oklahoma State, I probably would not. You're right, Triple T. I probably would have said, nope, I don't see it. Probably 2-2 would have been probably my guess after that.
I think I always stuck with 3-1 because it would get to 8-4, and that's what I predicted the whole way through. I thought TCU and Kansas State would flip, but I did always think that by the time we got to this point in the season, I thought they would beat Kansas and Baylor. Last question from Tom before we go to Anwar. Cole Hudson, we haven't mentioned this today, Jason, what it looked like with Cole Hudson. He's saying Cole Hudson doesn't start again for Texas unless of injury to someone. DJ ain't giving the spot up. I hope it's not a really significant injury for Hudson.
And Cole has some position versatility. He practiced some at center. So, I mean, he's got some even if it's not at right guard, he could still help out in other areas. And then I see a James Worthy transfer question in the super chat queue, but instead of Xavier Worthy, he said James Worthy. But
my man.
Yeah,
you're talking our language now with the James Worthy
I had a
drop.
James Worthy poster on my wall when I was in high school. I appreciate the James Worthy reference. Yes,
Troy. I think whatever ends up happening with Xavier Worthy, I don't think today impacts any of it. I think there's a 30,000-foot view that they were going to take when this season is over, and yeah, today wasn't that big of a deal. I don't think. Jason. You have any questions you want to ask Onwar, or do you want to get the hell on up out of here?
Yeah, I think I might go eat some more leftover Thanksgiving food, man. I need to get hopping on the board. I haven't checked since I posted my story, so I'll let you guys bring us home.
Take a look at my article, please.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at it. I haven't read
Speak at it. Last week I had
like
14 typos. Onwar Richardson joining us from DKR as Jason Sukumel goes to raid the refrigerator.
Speaking of typos, here comes Onwar.
Hey, there wasn't a whole lot I could say when I got to my post-game article and someone complained about it. And I was like, oh, let me go see what you're nitpicking. Oh. Yeah. Then I just I apologized afterwards. I was like, yeah, that was bad.
There are few things that just give me a kick when it's like I have a typo that's kind of a major thing on a Sunday, and I just don't want to go in there and just see like 15 comments of how stupid I am. That is usually it's just so you know, usually when you tip me off about something like that, I'm like, man, I'm done. I'm not dealing with this shit today. They're not gonna bring me down.
You're like, oh, that's gonna ruin my day.
I'm not gonna do it.
Onwar, first of all, welcome to the show. In terms of, I guess it ends up being like almost more than 45 minutes, but doesn't feel like it took as long for all of the post-game stuff to happen today as it normally does after a game. So it's good to have you on the show. You did the Steve Sarkisian press conference. I said going in the press game post, I was like, there's a lot that Sark's going to talk about today that was really good and rightfully so, right? I mean, gush on Bijan, gush on Roschon, gush on Ford and Overshone. There were a lot of guys that played well today. It was a fourth quarter game that they won, right? Which has been kind of the opposite of their MO during the Sarkisian era. And yet the quarterback thing ends up being so notable as a discussion point that after Quinn Ewers fumbles on the ball that ends up being returned for a touchdown and puts Baylor up by 3, they never let Quinn Ewers throw the ball again. So just how much Quinn Ewers centric was the post-game press conference?
You know, it's funny you say that. There really wasn't a lot of Quinn questions directed at him. Huh. I think he did a really good job, of highlighting all the positives that occurred. To your point, the defense and what they were able to do. Really, he starting with the falling behind, 9-0, how quickly that happened. And then, he just kind of talked about the fighting back, basically redirecting the ship and then being able, to kind of close out the show, the Bijan, glowingly, the Roschon glowingly, speaking so highly about them. And of course, everything on defense, Jalen Ford's of the words, the Marvions, and how his defense has stepped up. And so at the end of the day, when, you heard him talk and you kind of said, yeah, I guess it wasn't really that bad. He did a really good job of highlighting the positives. And so there really was not, really wasn't a lot of quick questions. I'm kind of going through it right now because someone asked him about them running it, running it a certain amount of times. And he just, but it wasn't about Quinn. And he basically said, talked about how that was a good room. They put Jonathan Brooks in there when Roschon got dinged up and how he blocked for Bijan. And basically, yes, there really wasn't, as I'm going through here, I'm looking through all the transcriptions. I'm not even quite sure, Catch, there was a quarterback question.
Well, that's odd because I can tell you on Orangebloods, if you go to the message board, there's a lot of Quinn conversation. And, what did you think about today? Because to be fair to Quinn, when the ball actually left his hand and went into the direction of a wide receiver in this game, he had one of his more successful games of the season, a 170-something quarterback rating. What was it officially? Just 176.9. And yet it was holding on to the ball, situational awareness, the safety, the fumble. There's a lot wrapped around the passing numbers that in the end made it a very difficult to assess situation. Some good, some bad. It's hard not to think about Monday and open quarterback competition in the spring. Where's your head just after having seen it up close in person?
So this is a Quinn specific question, right?
Yeah.
So if we're talking about Quinn, himself, the numbers, if we just look at the numbers themselves are not bad. I mean, if we just base it off of that, 12 of 6, I think it's a complete 75%, a $194, 176.9, passer rating. He also rushed for a touchdown, which is something that we normally don't see. So there is that. Of course, there was a missed throw to Jatavian, the 2 errors that you talked about. It's interesting because what some of that can be attributed. The fumble is he's under pressure, right? And so what he should do in that situation, you probably say to yourself like maybe he handles that differently. But to his slight defense, it wasn't like the ball just slipped out of his hands. A huge human being did hit him and kind of knocked the ball out, and so that probably does play a little bit of a part in there. But at the end of the day, Texas understood and Sarkisian understood that they needed to, he also talked about he simplified stuff in game for his guys. He said he stopped doing a lot of motion because he felt like that was just guys were jumping off sides, guys were getting jittery, all that kind of stuff. So he said that what they did, so they said we're just going to line up and just run a play. He said and that's what he said ends up being successful for them. He said we ran plays that we were running that we learned on the first days of training camp, and he went simple for them, and he seemed to see like that's where I see your expression on that. So it looked like there was a lot of different things that weren't working from an offensive standpoint, not just a Quinn thing. Then at some point he just kind of kept it simple. Didn't do a lot of motion and just said, let's run Bijan, Roschon, let's get the hell out of there. So, from a Quinn standpoint, I know there'll be a conversation, in the offseason. We'll have tons of conversations, about it. But, that being said, look, Catch, there's 1 to 2 more games potentially left on the schedule. If Quinn closes out the season in the bowl game the way, let's say, Casey did a couple of years ago, I don't know if we're going to go in there just clamoring for that. I still think there's at least one more thing to be said. But for him, there was some errors, but I also think there was some improvement.
For Quinn.
Yeah. I mean, the numbers. I said there were some errors. Right. But I also said there was some improvement. His completion percentage in this game was probably higher than it's been since God knows when.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's probably has to be the best since OU.
Has to be, right? I mean, so I'd have to go back, but from a completion percentage standpoint, it hasn't been there, right? So
when they went down, when he fumbles the ball and it gets returned for a touchdown and they go from being up 5 to down 3, they officially never let him touch the ball again.
Correct.
So there's a lot of things that you can say about why that happened, and it ends up being a good thing for the team, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they lined up and smashed Baylor, and it was working, and they didn't go away from it. But they also weren't about letting him touch the ball at all at that point. And it's a hard one because when the ball leaves his hands, some good things happen today. Like you said, statistically, if you show me that before the game starts, I'm like, bet. Good job, Quinn. There was just a lot baked into the performance around that with regards to situational awareness. You can't at that. You have to get rid of that ball before you can fumble it and give the lead away. But they won, and there's a lot more good than bad. But man, it's hard. If it's any other position on the field, you could almost walk away with ease. And it's like the quarterback one. And we can just move on, I guess, if we don't want to talk quarterbacks, and just say there's a reason why on Monday Sarkisian said the quarterback battle is going to be a competition. And I feel like for weeks I said it would be important for Quinn to do something that would change the narrative. And it didn't happen today. The narrative is, I think, existing from previous weeks, and that's what we'll go into the offseason with.
I think the narrative also can change, though, Catch. And I think the narrative can be, exactly or maybe what the Hudson Card narrative should have been last year, which is you have a young quarterback who needs to learn and grow, and these are the growing pains of a young quarterback. And then what happened? What could it have looked like if you, instead of benching him, you just kind of saw this whole thing through and got through to the end of the season? Could have been better. I think the danger, of the conversation, Catch, is there's always this knee jerk, where's the next guy? Where's the next guy? Where's
it's
the
not
next
knee
guy?
jerk with Quinn right now.
But the next guy is going to have growing pains as well.
Well, so the question ends up being, is Quinn Ewers truly going to be the answer, or have you seen enough to make you know one way or the other? I don't think good or bad I have. I don't know. Right? I'm not giving up on Quinn, but I'm certainly not at a point where I'm like, he's definitely all Big 12 next year because it's his second full season. I don't know. I
just think the danger of not saying, okay, this was a growing year. Maybe the expectations were too high, but this is what they need to be, and readjust it and say, okay, now see what he does in year two, as opposed to, well, let's see what happens with a battle between Quinn, Malik, and Arch, and maybe one of those guys get it. That person's going to have growing pains as well. The same.
If we don't hear that Quinn Ewers has a football and the playbook with him everywhere he goes in this offseason, he's going to lose the job next season. This is a critical offseason for him to take football as seriously as he can possibly take it. Because if he doesn't make massive improvement, they're not going to keep Arch Manning on the bench forever. They're just not. I mean, Hudson Card is not Arch Manning. And over the course of the last 4 weeks, fans have been clamoring for the backup to come in. I think next year we'd probably see it if we get to a point where they think to themselves, we can't let the quarterback throw the ball anymore because we don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think today was an exclamation mark on what will eventually be a quarterback battle in the spring. And yet, Anwar, it really is important to not talk too much about the quarterback battle, because I thought there were standouts all over the field on senior day, guys that will be having played their last game that certainly are worthy of a lot of acclaim today.
Yeah, where do you want to start? As far as that one is concerned, that conversation.
Let's go let's start our way out, in the back, and work our way forward. DeMarvion Overshone may have had his best game of the season today, and Jalen Ford not far behind. I read the stats out earlier. Those two guys combined for 27 tackles. I think 5 tackles for loss, a sack, an interception. If we think Ford may be coming back, this was definitely Overshone's last game. I love that Overshone went out with a statement performance. I was just happy for him to see it.
I thought, and again, this is the DeMarvion performance that we thought we would get from last season, right? And this is where we thought the trajectory was heading. It didn't happen. A lot of things didn't happen last season, so we have that. But it goes back to what we were talking about before the season. And again, we brought this up before, but it's always worth revisiting and mentioning. This Steve Sarkisian and this staff was very, very worried about the linebacker position before the season, to the point if you were a linebacker and you were going into the portal, it didn't matter what level you were on, they were contacting you because they wanted to know if there was a possibility you could come to the University of Texas. And then we hit training camp and Stark started saying he felt pretty good about the linebacker position. And you thought to yourself, like, you feel pretty good, huh? All right. And you guys end up, being, Kat, you would have to tell me the last time you've seen, two linebackers for Texas that have been that outstanding, not just one, but two, a combo of guys.
You might have to go back to like 2014 when you had like Jordan Hicks and Peter Jenkins, and I don't know that those two guys played as well. It's been a while.
Yeah, so DeMarvion as well as he's played, Jalen Ford, who should be able to give himself some options, definitely some things to think about for sure. I thought the linebacker play was phenomenal, fantastic, at all times, and DeMarvion closes out the show, which is of course fitting, for him on senior night, but. Jalen Ford has been an absolute stud. One of the guys, by the way, I predicted before the season would be great and have a really good season. One of the guys that in one show after another, I stuck with my Jalen Ford prediction. Fantastic. Look fantastic today because Jalen Ford balled out this season.
Yeah, I didn't get that one right. I was a major Jalen Ford doubter coming into this season. But just like Baby's father in Dirty Dancing, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. And Jalen Ford, after the first game of the season, was an All-America level linebacker. And I don't even know. I feel like there's been a lot of performances with Ford this season where I felt like it was the best performance. I don't think today was his best performance. But he finished with 13 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, an interception, a pass breakup, and a quarterback hit. And I don't even know if they got all of the quarterback hits correct. Like, I feel like both he and Roschon did more damage than they're completely getting credit for. But Jalen Ford, the cool thing for Jalen Ford is if he does come back, he's going to get a lot of run in the preseason next year. He'll be on all-conference preseason teams, all-America teams. He's got a highlight tape that they can put together that's like, that dude's a total badass. And what it means is that if he has a great year next year, anywhere close to the season that he's had this year, I think you're going to see him on all the all-America teams. You'll see him listed for the Butkus Award. You'll see him get the attention. I think he's played that way this year. If he doesn't make some All-America teams, even just like some third-team All-Americas, I'm not saying he has to be among the top 3 linebackers in the country, but I'm saying he's probably one of the top 10 linebackers in the country, so maybe there's some place to find him on a spot like that. If it doesn't happen this year, that won't be a problem next year because I think he'll be the most high-profile returning defensive player in the Big 12 off the top of my head. And, good for him. I mean, if that's what ends up happening, he will have absolutely earned his spot in that kind of language. Whereas, Malik used to get talked about in that kind of way nationally before it was earned because of the recruiting profile that he had. Mm-hmm. Jalen's had to build himself up from a low 3-star profile that in a single season, he's played exceptionally well. And today, again, another big-time performance by Roschon and Ford. And Ford's return next year, you see how important it is because imagine taking him and Roschon out of this game on War. I mean, it's a completely different contest.
This is where I think when the people who do the collectives, the NIL people, this is where they got to, they start figuring out, okay, who do we really want to have come back and who can we afford to let lead and who's the ones we got to prioritize, right? We've talked about, like, you can't afford Bijan, so you got to let that one go, right? But it is other guys you probably say, okay, I don't know if I want to spend the money to make some sort of NIL deal happen. This is the one, though, that this is the guy that probably at this day, it was probably like a day 3-ish kind of pick, and you tell that guy, like, listen, you may kick the tires, but we really want you back. So when people start going in the office and say, hey, I think I want to go in the transfer portal, catch you. We won't play this game, but there's guys that we know you should say, let them go. And Jalen's like, no. Let's make sure you stay. And he's like, that's the guy that I think NIL is made for. Not a Bijan per se, it's to try to convince him to stay, but a guy like Jalen Ford, who will make your team better next year. And to your point, all the preseason awards, bringing that guy to Big 12 media days, catch, right? Having him be the face of your program all off season, like, that is where, like, the stock increases. And of course, listen, we know no matter what anyone's talking about Texas today, with highs or lows, catch, we know by the time springtime and summer and everything rolls around, it's 10 is the floor. 10,
right?
10 is the floor with this team, right? We know they're going to be ranked. Everyone's going to love Sarkisian. He's the next great thing. And Jalen Ford can capitalize on that.
Ultimately, today's really important because Texas, 7-5 would have been a major disappointment. I mean, Texas fans have already come to grips. 8-4. It's not the season that we wanted. It's the season a lot of people said we might have that we thought wasn't good enough. But at the end of the day, you won 3 more games than you did a year ago. You could still win a 4th if you win a 9th game in a bowl game. They still have a chance for the Big 12 championship game. They need Kansas to do them a huge favor. But it was, this game will be forgotten in a few weeks. But it was important that they got a win today, that it shapes the narrative of this season a little bit more into the direction that's positively burnt orange and positive for Sarkisian than had they lost this game. There was a point onward during the game today when Baylor's up 9-0 in the first quarter and the whispers of 7-win Steve started to come out. And I was like, oh man, not anything but that. And you know what? They won the game. We're not going to hear that. And I think it's underrated important for the program.
100%. I think 7 would have just been, it would have been bad. I think it would have been bad. It would have closed out with a loss. There would be no reason to be excited about, Saturday and what that could happen. Because look, if Saturday happens and Kansas State goes out and does what we think Kansas State will do, then at that point you say to yourself, well, you know what? Your team put themselves in the position to potentially be in the Big 12 championship game. It didn't happen. Sarkisian talked about it today. Like, when he looks back at the season, there's, like everything, 1 or 2 plays, things could be differently. I think, and I contend, catch, because the offseason, catch, to me, amongst fans, is always about kind of rationalizing what happened in the previous season and telling yourself, if this thing happened, Texas fans will be able to do this, catch. They'll be able to say, you know what? If you just make that field goal versus Alabama, or if Ryan Watts takes down, the quarterback right at the end of that Alabama game, man, that could have been different, right? And you start going through some of the other games, you say, man, we're 1 play here, we're 1 play there, this and that. There wasn't a loss that was greater than 7 points this season. The average margin of defeat this season was 5.5, right? You'll be able to tell yourself, man, this is this, and then some who even doubt Quinn will be able to say, you know what? He was kind of young. Like, I've done this long enough to know how everyone feels today is not going to be the optimism. Because you and I always for trying to be realistic. When we try to set realistic goals, everyone looks at us like we have a third eye and wants to shout us down and you're negative and all these kind of things. Like when you say the defense needs to play better, people wanted you to run you out of town. Like I know what's going to happen. So the point is when you add 8 with the possibility of getting to 9, I think it makes everyone feel a little bit better, about where they're at. I think it makes taking what happened this season, to be able to rationalize it as growing pains, little things here and there. But Pete, we haven't heard of anyone wanting to fire Pete K in a long time, Catch, right? And so you can start saying like there'll be some growing things as far as the season is concerned. And I think that's what 8 does. I think 8 also, we don't have to go into the offseason with is Sarkisian the guy going forward. Like 8 pretty much solidifies that we won't have that conversation. That could be off of everyone's radar. You feel good. By the way, and you know what 8 also does for you, Catch, too? Man, it makes you feel so much better that you're not an Aggie fan or a Sooner fan. I mean, and I know sometimes it's just little things that matter. It's just a little thing, but you'd much rather take this and feel good about your program, especially when you start surveying the landscape, than the alternative, which is 7, which is a kind of like a nothing kind of sandwich.
If you go 7-5, it means Sark is a 500 coach going into the bowl game. That's not good. Like that's not the area that Sark needs to be. To go 8-4, even with a loss, he's above 500 going into year 3. And it's a weird optical thing, but to not have to see that said 9 months in a row that he's up, because if he loses in the ball game, suddenly he's sub 500 through 2 years. I think it's just something people are saying out loud, a little bit like the 7-win Steve, right? Like had they gone 7-5, I think there would be a new narrative that punches out, and it can't be stressed enough. 8-4 helps you avoid a couple of these narratives that they're not good for the program, and now they don't exist. They won't have to exist. Question.
Yeah.
Sark's not going into next season on the hot seat, correct?
Nah.
Yeah.
Nah.
What does he have to do next year to avoid it?
And maintain. I think 8 and let 8 be his floor and maintain it. If you take a step back, right, you can't. That's what you can't do, right? You can't take a step back, right, barring some sort of unforeseen injury. But you don't want to take a step back and like not make a bowl game. Like that would probably do that. 6 would probably make you question this stuff. But I think as long as he maintains this, I think as long as you can see some sort of tangible growth from the quarterback position, as long as you can feel good about where they are from the line. And I think, look, people will be very excited about, what that looks like on both sides of the offensive and defensive line, Catch, because you're going to have a lot of young guys who everyone was really excited about that are going to have an opportunity potentially start and play. And what does that look like on the defensive side, on the offensive side as well? So I think as long as he kind of maintains where he's at for the near future, I think he's good to go. I don't think there's any hot seat talk going for, even if he finished his 8-4 next season, I don't think that would even be on the table.
So follow-up question. And I agree, he's not getting fired 8-4 next year. The hot seat wasn't really like what could get him fired next year. I'm just trying to set up where our heads are. If he goes 8-4 next year, same question then for 2024, what would he then need to do? If you go 5-7, 8-4, 8-4, and now it's year 4 and you're either in the SEC or close to joining the SEC, when does the step have to occur before, at some point it will occur if a certain amount of progress isn't made?
Well, so to me, Catch, this is my overall belief. And so I won't necessarily go into hot seat discussion, but I can definitely address like the step needs to occur, right? So I think winning a championship in competing for one in the Big 12 is definitely going to be. It's going to be easier for Texas to do it in the Big 12 than it will be in the SEC. Just keeping it a buck, just because we know what lies ahead. We know what the monsters of the Midway look like. And so I think, over the next couple of years, if you're Texas, you got to say, you know what, playing in this conference, this is where you got to find a way, to try to get a Big 12 title before you leave. Get a title before you leave, because you know how much more difficult it's going to be once you leave this place. So I think for me next year, I think we should be talking about a Quinn Ewers going into year 2 and what those improvements look like. You should be talking about an offensive line that should be better than they were this year because of the guys who didn't play that we've been looking forward to, and see what that kind of looks like. We'll see what the receiver position looks like, Catch, and how that gets addressed and how that whole situation shapes out. You're going to say Jatavian Sanders is coming back, and you should have the best tight end in the conference going forward. You should have a good stable of running backs. They feel pretty good about those backs. Bijan's Bijan, so let's not get crazy. But they feel good about the backs that they have behind him, and we'll see what happens as far as the holding on of the kid from Orlando. That's kind of his name is escaping me at this moment. Yeah. The defensive line, you still got Sorrell. I'm surprised his dad's not in the chats, but you still have that. We'll see who obviously Coburn is gone. We'll see what happens, as far as everyone else on that line is concerned. If you get a Jalen Ford back, you should be able to. I think there will be enough things and enough components and enough things that you can say to yourself, all right, this should be a team that legit is competing, for a Big 12 title. Max Duggan, is he a senior this year, Catch? So, are they going to repeat that kind of success? It's going to be pretty hard, to do. Baylor, didn't look like a team to me that was looking like they're going to be anywhere close. K-State, Deuce Vaughn is going after this year, correct? Well, potentially he's going after this year. Maybe he comes back. He may come back. I mean, he seems to love K-State for whatever reasons, Catch. So Deuce Vaughn may try to find a fifth-year option for all I know. I think next year ends up being a year where I think you can place some reasonable expectations on it. I thought going into this season, Catch, it would be unreasonable based off of 5 wins. I thought people who said 10 and big competing for, I'm like, that's asking a lot. You and I were both in the 8-win prediction, but I think that saying 8, you had 5, 8, and then you should be in that double-digit range. I think as much as we want to shout down Longhorn fans, I think going into next season, I want to shout them down.
I think it would be more than fair to expect to be into the Big 12 championship game by year 3. It's not an unreasonable expectation, I think, if you're a Texas fan, and you'll want to see growth this season. And yet I think, Anwar, what will really shape the offseason is I think a lot of really knowledgeable fans are looking at the portal and they know, okay, well, we don't know what's going to happen with Worthy, but we may need to I'm still waiting to get an official word from Jordan Whittington, but it looks like today could have been his last day as a Longhorn. He certainly participated in senior day activities and was on the senior video and seemed to be saying goodbye when recording that video that was released by the school yesterday. You feel good about your offensive line. You feel good about your tight end position. You look on defense and you go, we still need an edge. We might need to rebuild our linebacker unit around Jalen Ford. And could probably use a DB or 2 based on the turnover that's occurring there. And you're at least losing Anthony Cook. You're at least losing Deshaun Jameson, and none of the guys that are they're filling in at those positions when they're not in the game have quite performed at levels that you feel like, hey, an upgrade, if you can get it, wouldn't be a bad thing, right? If there's a Ryan Watts out there that they can pull again this year to help improve the secondary, that wouldn't be a bad thing. I really think how the team performs in the portal and whether or not they can tweak the roster and improve it in some key areas. Can you upgrade Jordan Whittington, for instance? If he leaves, can you find a better slot receiver for next season on the offense through the portal acquisition? And if the answer is yes, and it's a game of fine margins, and you can bring a guy like that in there, like maybe you're very quietly improving the team through small margins in a lot of different places. And I think fans will look at that and go, I have reason now to have Big 12 championship game expectations that doesn't just feel like me being a fan. Doing that thing where it's like, all the other teams lose their guys. We bring our guys back. We should be better. You and I've done that before, where you look on paper and you're like, Texas should be one of the top 2 teams in the Big 12. And then it doesn't happen. And then you're like, what were we thinking? I think with the right tweaks to the roster with this recruiting class coming in, I think Texas fans justifiably might very well look at it and go, this looks like a team that should be one of the top 2 teams in a Big 12.
And the thing is, Catch, when you talked about an offensive thing, I think what may help Texas now is that it may become more of an appealing place from a defensive standpoint as far as the transfer portal is concerned.
Has to be.
Because you and I know, as we've done this over the past couple of years, the elite defensive players that they've gone after have sold them no. Like one after another. Like Ryan Watts might be the best of what they've been able to get. But and again, I'm not trying to throw scuds at someone that's just sitting in their living room. But you think about the guys they've gotten, like the Ben Davises of the world who, didn't produce anything. You think about all the guys that they've acquired. It's been kind of a shoulder shrug from a defensive standpoint, Catch. Like it's not a single one that really outside of Ryan Watts that you said, excuse me. That sounds gross. Hold on.
Yeah, take your time.
And just
make yourself well.
Getting over this last piece of whatever's been going on. But now all of a sudden, I think now, Catch, when the defensive guys come in, defensive linemen, linebackers, whatever, all the guys that told them no, and Catch, there's a list of elite guys. I think now all of a sudden those guys can say, all right, I see what you guys are doing there in Texas. Like, all things are equal, why not? As opposed to, nah, I'm good on that.
No, it's a great point. There are 2 kinds of defensive prospects. They're the ones that used to play their high school ball in Texas, like a Watts, where if he's looking to move back, it makes a lot of sense to go to Texas. Then there are the defensive prospects that really aren't from Texas and really just want to – all they care about is what's the best defense I can play on an important big stage that's going to get me ready for the NFL. Texas has really struggled to win those guys.
Yeah.
And what you hope is that the defense performed at a level that changes, that Texas can approach a Jacoby Windman from UNLV, who actually did play his high school ball in Texas, and it'd be a Texas-Michigan State battle, and he not commit to Michigan State and never visit Texas. That's where Texas's reputation was a season ago, was like Michigan State or Texas for a high school kid from Texas. And he was like, I'm not even going to visit Texas. I'm just going to commit to Michigan State. You hope that this year, if those same situations kind of arise, and I think they will, that Texas can win a couple of those, because this team's a few more good players away from playing in the Big 12 championship game. Now you wonder, this senior class ends up being a better senior class than a lot of people ever thought Tom Herman would have left Steve Sarkisian. It was like, Tom Herman sucks. He didn't leave Sarkisian anything. And it's like, well, you look at this senior class, and just on the defensive side of the ball alone, Coburn and Ojomo and Overshone and Jameson and Cook. I mean, that's 6 dudes right there. That's 6 off of the defense that, they'll need to replace. That's why I'm saying like the portal becomes pretty important, and you're thankful. And Jalen Ford, we think might return, but that's a Herman guy. So like in the end, better situated this season with upperclassmen than you thought. There's a good chance. I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. There's a good chance before the Longhorns go into the portal that they'll have a senior class of 7 going into next season. Because they got 11 juniors on the books for scholarships at this exact moment. But of those 11, Leibrock has officially retired from football. So now you're down to 10. Then you've got Devin Richardson, who we still need to check on, Jordan Whittington, and Junior Angelau. And talking to sources earlier today, there was a thought process of maybe one of those guys will come back, but the smart money is probably 3 out of 4-ish of that group leaves, including Leibrock, which would leave you with 8 seniors if one comes back. You're left with 7 if none come back. So I do think maybe even hitting the portal and beefing up some upper class leadership will be a thing that would be important, because as much as Sarkisian's talked about this team being young, on paper next year it really looks young if you've only got 7 seniors.
Yeah. But it also, what they have from a talent standpoint is, that, to your point, what they do in the portal, who the guys that they're developing behind them, like that'll be the interesting thing to see within the offseason, because we see that there are certain things here from an offensive defensive standpoint that can absolutely work if you got the right pieces of the puzzle that are in there to make it work.
What else from today stands out as something that we haven't talked about yet that, by God, we should?
I don't know. I mean, we've been going to 90 minutes, so let me just go through here to see. Well, I mean, I guess the only thing that's really left to discuss, Catch, is in the Kansas versus Kansas State. Like, are you going to give them any? Are you giving Kansas any shot on Saturday?
Yes, they have a shot.
Okay.
They have a shot. It comes down to quarterback play. They've been getting on this season like 170 plus quarterback efficiency combined from both of their quarterbacks. So they've got 2 quarterbacks that are capable of scoring points against anybody if they get it going. A week ago, they put Jalen Daniels back in, and he just was rusty and didn't have the mojo back yet, and was starting to play better by the end of the game. Last pass was a touchdown pass, and then they took him out, and they put Bean into the game. If Kansas gets a Herculean quarterback performance tomorrow, they could score a lot of points and turn it into a shootout. But Kansas State's going to give up 40 tomorrow. So it's going to take that offense being at a very high. So I give them a chance. I don't give them a great chance because I think they may mentally be checked out. They got their bowl win. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it matters. Kansas State may just shove it up their throat no matter what. But I give them like a 14% chance.
So it's interesting, Catch. When we did our Monday Overreaction show, I predicted on that show that by the end of the week, we would hear about the Kansas coach probably getting some job offers by some other people. And I feel like later that day,
the opposite happened.
They're like, we're signing this guy for the next 25 years. And he's never going anywhere. I'm like, they knew, and Kansas, what I concluded knew, they're like, man, the last thing we need going into the final week of the season is for that to be a distraction. And not only that, for recruiting purposes, everything like that, like we need to just solidify this thing. And so it didn't happen. I think there'll be a little bit of ease there. I think They'll be sort of getting off the mat. I'm going to give Kansas a little bit more of it because I'm going to give them. I want to give them 30% catch. I'm going to go a little bit higher. So it's 7 out of 10, right? 3 out of 10, however you want to look at it. I'm going to give him a little bit higher percentage because I do know that Jalen Daniels can be so good. I do know that he is extremely dangerous. And to your point, if that guy gets cooking and Kansas gets a chance to get its footing on defense, we know that this team can be tough. Like, we've seen it before. So it's not like we've looked at this Kansas team and said to yourself, like, they can't do it. We've seen them do it before. Now, we know Kansas State is really good. It's a rivalry game too, Catch, and those get really tricky and those get dicey. You just never know. And, and typically you don't have to say that when it comes to Kansas because typically they're not good enough for it to matter if it's a rivalry game or not. I'm going to give them a 30% chance of winning. Now, I still have plans for Saturday night, so I'll be checking on my phone. So I'm not going to cancel my plans. But yeah, it's I give them 30, and Catch. I tell you what, if your 14% happens or my 30% happens, the conversation that we're having next week is massively different than the conversation that we're having right now.
It will, because I do think in a rematch against TCU, those teams are really close. I think on a neutral field, feels like a coin flip, maybe slight advantage TCU. How about this? The weather in Manhattan, Kansas tomorrow.
Okay.
It's going to be like 49 at kickoff, which is pretty lovely. Couldn't ask for much more than that. But throughout the entire game, there's like a 60+% chance of rain. Not a lot of wind. I mean, it's like 3 mile an hour wind. That's what they're showing at weather.com. But there's a chance for showers during the game. That doesn't really move me off of my percentage, but it could make for a weird game. I mean, Texas will take whatever it can get at this point. I don't know if these two teams playing straight up. Kansas State is really good. I've come around on them. They're a very mature, almost professional-like team. I mean, the last half of this season, they've been battering most people, and their biggest sin was that they didn't beat Texas at home on a night when Texas played pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'll be watching tomorrow.
Yeah.
I just think that I'd be shocked if Kansas wasn't completely dialed in mentally in exactly the place they need to be tomorrow. They seem to know exactly what they're playing for. They were on point last week in Morgantown. And I just don't know that I think they'll give Daniels the ball, and he's just not quite in a rhythm yet. But boy, if you told me that if Jalen Daniels never gets hurt, this game's kind of a toss-up for me. Because that dude we've seen it. That dude, when he's on, can light up anybody. And then it's a coin flip because I think, like I said, I think Kansas State's going to score a lot of points tomorrow night.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. Whatever that line is, I'll probably take the over.
By the way, thank you to Bijan Robinson and Jordan Whittington for both hitting the Moors on Prize Picks. It's the only thing I leaned into for Texas today. And at halftime, it didn't look like either guy was going to hit their number. And in the end, they did just enough. I'll take it. Anything else?
Yeah, that's it. Let's wrap it up.
All right. Guys, thanks for – well, you know what? We have a few super chat questions. Just real quick. We'll knock these out. Overweight Lover jumped in with why does no one ever talk about Keelan Robinson coming back with all the people leaving as of right now? How many scholarships do we have? Last question first. 68, I believe. They're at 68, which means without losing anybody else, they'd have 17 scholarships. They've got 21 scholarship commitments already. So that should let you know that Steve Sarkisian is expecting he's expecting some guys to leave. If I'm not mistaken, once you take this, I think they're at 68 after you wipe out the seniors on scholarship. As far as Keelan Robinson, what are your thoughts on that, Anwar?
That's a good question. We don't talk about Keelan probably as much just because of Roschon and Bijan and their impact. And hell, Sarkisian doesn't talk about him as much as well. So Sarkisian usually he mentions him, but when you think of Keelan, we think special teams, things to that effect. But I mean, I think it's a fair question. Where's Keelan's head at, and what does he want to do? And we've seen guys catch that if they feel like they can get on an NFL roster, even if it's as an undrafted guy, they'll do it. So I think he's got good speed. I think he's a good prospect, but to me, he's a guy that definitely benefits for another year. And hopefully maybe getting more usage without the big two that are there.
I think he's coming back next season. I think he's also kind of a specialty player.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much you would think with the number of reps combined that Roschon and Bijan leave behind, that some of those would go to Keelan. I just don't know that they view him as an every down running back that is automatically on the depth chart at running back. I mean, he's one of these guys that they kind of use all over the field and is positionless, but I don't know that there's a world where he's getting more than 5 touches a game next year. Even though he's so explosive, it sounds good to me. They just have not used him in that way yet. There's something there that he isn't capable of or hasn't shown to be capable of that I think he's in competition. Like, I don't know that he's beating Jonathan Brooks for the starting running back job next year or Baxter. He's a guy that's going to get like 5 or 6 touches a game, and I just kind of think that's his ceiling. Another super chat question, this one from Jamari, says, Kansas State is not just a chance at the Big 12 berth, but Sugar Bowl berth. Whoever plays TCU is basically guaranteed a Sugar Bowl berth. Yes, sir.
Sure. I mean,
you are 100. It's a big game. You're exactly right. Texas getting to Arlington for the Big 12 championship game would be a trickle-down effect that would be really good for the program. Eric says 18 points being undefeated this year. The program is getting better. Ketch was 85% right on his 8-4 prediction. Future is bright. Need some more portal starters.
So he gave you a compliment and also threw a little shade in there in there as well, right?
He's just trying to be funny.
Yeah, I
don't think it was true shade.
It's not true, but it was a little jab.
It's okay. I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, he is a sponsor. So
I'm okay with playful punches.
Yeah.
It's like he comes nowhere close to being a jackass about it. He's just a little dig. That's his brotherly love from where I come from. Let's see. And Eric, you're right. I mean, Texas is 18 points away from being undefeated. The program has gotten better. I was 100% right on my 8-4 prediction. Almost came close to picking the right games too. People forget. I was talking about that Texas Tech game for 6 months. But I think the future is bright. Need some more portal starters. Again, Eric, finger on the pulse. I think you nailed it. Overweight Lover says, do you give credit to Herman's recruiting this senior class and Sark and company for developing them? Yeah. I mean, it's not an either or. It doesn't have to be either or. Herman deserves credit. Like Jalen Ford had 0 major college offers. Tom Herman and his staff were the only major college. His next best offer was Utah. Not exactly a recruiting powerhouse. So, yeah, you give Herman some credit for helping provide the players, and you give the coaching staff credit. I think Jeff Choate gets credit for developing a guy like Jalen Ford, while Tom Herman and his staff should get credit for recruiting him. We don't have to sling arrows at anybody.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the same way that, you get to give Charlie credit for the guys he recruited, and you give the other staff credit for developing them to NFL players. It's kind of the exact same thing.
All right, we're going to wrap this thing up, even though there are a lot of people still watching the show, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us almost 2 hours after the game ends. Thank you to Adam Loewy, Loewy Law Firm, Accident and Injuries. If somebody messes with you, messes you up, mess with them by going and getting Adam Loewy. He knows what he's doing on that whole accident and injury side of things. He will take care of you significantly. Real quick, Blake, let's remind everybody, if you're not on orangebloods.com right now, do we have that thing that we can put up on the screen? There it is. It's one of the best offers Rivals.com has ever offered. As a matter of fact, I don't even know that I like it. It's like, it's a lot of money that we're just giving away. For $22. $22. All you got to do is use the Rivals, the promo code Rivals22. You get an entire year for basically the cost of 2 months. I would take advantage of that. If you've never been on orangebloods.com before, it's $22. Find out what the fuss is all about and why we're always the ones that people talk about. Like, go check it out. Just go check it out.
All right. Here's the thing about orangebloods.com. I'll catch the sales pitch because it probably feels weird for him to do it. It's not just, because you think to yourself, oh man, why am I going to be buying news? I can get it for free. Well, that's kind of one way of viewing it, but it's more so about, you get a lot of inside information. So Jason gives you all the recruiting updates throughout the week, so the things that you don't necessarily see online. You get a lot of insight that certain things that we don't put on Twitter, but that we put on our own website. You get that stuff there as far as the behind the scenes things. Again, we don't want to slight any of our customers so there's a lot of things that we keep behind. There's a weekly war room that gives you news and information and things to that effect. And then there's also the largest Longhorn community, the largest Longhorn message board that not only talks about Longhorn sports, which is a lot Longhorn centric, they talk about everything in life, like anything you want to talk about in life. They'll talk about whether it's movies, whether it's travel tips, you can say, I post something like, hey, taking a trip to Turkey, anybody got any lunch recommendations? Someone would chime in, and there's there's so much.
It'd be like 50.
Yes, it's like Reddit, but from a Longhorn community, like you name it, it's there. So, and then there's things that people do together when we help out each other, people in need. There's a nonprofit that goes along as well for people going through different things. So it's a huge community. And if you're thinking about giving someone a gift, there's a lot of gifts you're going to give. You're not going to give a gift for like $20 that's going to keep someone occupied for an entire year. Like, that's just not going to happen. This will keep someone occupied for an entire year. A year of them where you don't have to worry about giving them anything else. That's what's going to be, I think, a major selling point. Give it to someone that you know is a Longhorn fan. There's things that you're going to do, but go outside and don't just get a hat. Give them something like this. And then give it for yourself if you don't have it. Like 22 bones, you'll spend that on an Amazon movie tonight. Like, in that, you'll have that for, I guess you have it for, rented or have it for a lifetime. Dude, it's a really, really good investment. Okay, there you go. I just want to make sure I said it.
I'm not – I was going to say something, then I just realized the thing I'm responding to is from so long ago that there's no reason to respond to it. Lane, we love having you on Orange Bloods. Thank you. If you need anything at all, send me a DM. Michael wanted to sneak in real quick. Last quick one, going to be a good NFL draft for the Longhorns. You know what, Anwar? Nothing wrong.
Yes.
So Bijan is going to leave, almost certainly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all bad that he's leaving.
Yeah.
If they can get him in the first round, then it means Texas had a good day at the draft. It means we don't have to see the stories where Texas didn't have anybody drafted or didn't have anybody drafted on day 1 or day 2. Michael, I think you're right. I mean, look, we're talking on the offensive side of the ball. Clearly, Roschon and Bijan, I think, are going to be day 1 and day 2 guys. I think Roschon's going on day 2 somewhere in the 3rd round, assuming he tests well. Jordan Whittington could be in that mix as well. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball, Overshone. I saw someone this week had Overshone listed as a 1st-round draft pick that made my eyes pop a little bit. But I think he certainly played at a level where I think he'd probably go somewhere on day 2. Yeah. And I think teams are going to – until he just stops – getting better, I think people will look at Overshone as a versatile guy that can do a lot of things that an NFL coach can get more out of. So him, Cook, Jameson, it should be a good year. I mean,
don't sleep on Coburn. I mean,
Coburn, I think, goes somewhere in the 3rd and 4th round.
Yeah, that's a big guy.
I think Moro Ajomo could get drafted. Mm-hmm. Athletic big guys on defense get drafted. And Taquan Graham got drafted. And Taquan Graham was a pretty solid college player. So, too, a guy like Moro Ajomo. I think this could be a year where you see Texas with one guy in the 1st round, maybe a guy or two on day 2, maybe. And then I think on day 3, you could see 3, 4, 5 guys get drafted. And, at the end of maybe the draft, we're talking about a year where 7 or 8 Longhorns get drafted. That would be a good story for Texas. It would be good for these coaches to be able to say, we develop guys that go to the NFL. Just look at the 8 that we just sent.
Correct.
And that would, without knowing what the rest of the teams across the country would do, if you can get 8 guys drafted, you're probably putting out a stat that says you had more drafted than anybody else in the Big 12. Probably top 5 in the country. You're up there with Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. So, yeah, Michael.
And you don't feel so depressed when the SEC releases their numbers versus everyone else. Where they're like, SEC had 80 people drafted. Then they show every other conference, like Big 12, 10. It's like
what? Anwar, at the very end, we just couldn't completely survive the spam bots. At the end, they just had to show up in the last 2 minutes.
They know their target audience. They know there's some men out there just chilling, watching the shows, they're like, these guys, they want to celebrate. And you want to celebrate. Hot girls are waiting here.
They're like, there's 2 minutes left in the show. Fellas, just segue right on over. I can't even be mad.
You guys could just be sponsors. we would put them up there for you. We'd put the hot girls up. We let you know what'd be available. You just be sponsored. You don't have to spam us. Contact us. We work with you.
Yeah, we're going to lean into the thing that we think sell the best. Look, again, for Adam Loewy, for Blake, who did a great job producing and got that graphic ready, Johnny on the spot when I asked him to as the show was starting, for myself and Jason and Anwar, it's been an absolute pleasure doing the postgame shows. Here's to us doing a postgame show one more time next week. We can't control that, but it would be nice. If nothing else, we'll be with you on Monday for the Monday Overreaction show. No more Steve Sarkisian press conferences, presumably, unless the Kansas Jayhawks do everyone a favor and let us live for one more week. But we'll have the Monday Overreaction show, our full slew of content, just because the season slows down slowly. Just because the season slows down slightly. A little tricky wordplay there. We don't. We continue going strong with the content over at orangebloods.com and the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. Tons of content tomorrow. Anwar will have his Drunk Uncle article over at, I guess technically it's the Sunday Pulpit.
Sunday Pulpit. It's a little bit different.
You become so synonymous with the Drunk Uncle that everything's just the Drunk Uncle to me.
It really should be.
No, tomorrow is – no, wait. We're 2 days away from the Sunday Pulpit.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Oh, you get an extra day.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare.
Oh.
It's rare. I'm happy.
You get to go home and do snow angels in bed. And
well, I got to stop you. I've been paying the babysitter since 8 o'clock this morning. So, I mean, you talk about someone who is raking it in. My babysitter, she's like, man,
it's only 4:30. Let's get you out of here so that she only gets 10 hours.
I'm gonna drop off $200.
So that you're not responsible for 11 and just 10 for myself and Anwar Richardson and the babysitter that went to Kansas City last week and is getting a 10 hours of billing time on a Friday.
With her family in separate hotel rooms. Can we just make sure we add that portion in?
Well, you could have a nanny that's of age that traveled.
Yeah. Well, my babysitter is a senior in Vanderbilt.
But I didn't say that.
Okay, well, I'll just say it. Other people may know this, and this is how shit gets started. And so let's just be clear that everything was above board. That they got them separate rooms with the family. Like everything was above board. This is how you end up with To Catch a Predator or some shit. Like I don't want that. No R. Kelly going on over here. No Pied Piper. Ain't no Pied Piper going on.
I am not going to say a word. For myself and Anwar Richardson, thanks for being with us today. We will see you all on Monday. You guys have a great rest of the weekend. Later.